All right, our story today is when Pigasso met Mootisse.
No, Mootisse.
Mootisse, I'm sorry. Screwed it up already, sorry.
Yeah. There was once a young pig named Pigasso. While the other piglets rolled in the mud and played games, Pigasso painted. He painted anything and everything, and in the most unusual way.
At the same time, there once was a young bull named Mootisse. Mootisse was not like the other bulls. He wasn't interested in bullfighting. Mootisse was happy only when he painted pictures. And he painted big, bold, bright pictures.
In time, word of Picasso's talent spread throughout the pig provinces. Soon, art-loving pigs from all over lined to buy her creations.
At the same time, Mootisse was getting famous in the cattle community. There weren't many households that didn't own a Moosterpiece.
Pigasso and Mootisse were becoming art superstars, but this came with a price. Everybody wanted to see them. Art buyers, art sellers, art students, art historians, and even art groupies. One day, Pigasso got fed up and said, "I'm tired of this noisy pig pen."
At the same time, Mootisse declared, "I'm sick of this crowded kowtow." Needing a change, they both decided to look for a peaceful place where they could paint without distractions.
So each of the two artists looked far and wide for the perfect spot. Pigasso found a lovely farm looking towards the east.
And Mootisse found a handsome farm facing to the west.
After Pigasso moved in, she went to introduce herself to her new neighbor across the road.
At the same time, Mootisse went to introduce himself to his new neighbor across the road. That is how Pigasso met Mootisse. And coincidentally, that is how Mootisse met Picasso.
At first, Picasso and Mootisse were very friendly and welcomed each other as neighbors. But soon, things began to change. It started one day when Picasso criticized one of Mootisse's paintings.
Then Mootisse made fun of one of Pigasso's, and Mootisse called Pigasso an art hog.
The Picasso called Mootisse a mad cow.
Mootisse quipped, "You paint like a 2-year-old."
Picasso reported, "You paint like a wild beast."
And Mootisse raged, "Your colors look like mud."
And Picasso spat, "Your paintings look like color by numbers."
Then things really got out of hand. It was a modern art mess.
So Picasso stormed off into her house. "That Mootisse doesn't like my art." She huffed, "Well, I'll show him."
And Mootisse bullied his way into his house. "I'll give that Pigasso something she can really criticize."
And then a full-scale feud erupted. But it was a most unusual battle.
Armed with ladders and buckets of paint, Mootisse launched the first attack. He started at dawn, and by the end of the evening, he had succeeded in transforming the outside of his house into a monster-sized moosterpiece.
Not to be outdone, Picasso fired up her paintbrushes and in full view of the enemy, counterattacked. She turned her farm into a huge and outrageous port of art. The two artists then retreated into their houses and pulled down the shades. Picasso certainly didn't want to look out her window and stare at Mootisse.
Mootisse.
Oh, I'm
excuse me.
sorry, Mootisse.
And Mootisse had no desire to give his rooms a view of Pigasso. This presented a problem, and there seemed to be only one solution. Without a word to each other, Pigasso and Mootisse each began to build a huge wooden fence down the middle of the road.
At first, Picasso and Mootisse seemed satisfied. Both artists went back to painting by themselves. But after a while, Picasso was surprised to find that she missed that bull-headed Mootisse.
And at the same time, Mootisse found his studio empty without the presence of pig-headed Pigasso.
Picasso pondered that Mootisse isn't such a bad artist. He has some interesting ideas.
And Mootisse moaned, that Pigasso may not paint like me, but she knows what she's doing. However, being naturally pig-headed and bull-headed, neither artist knew how to apologize to the other. So they did the best they could do. They let their paintbrushes do the talking.
Picasso painted on one side of the fence,
and Mootisse painted on the other. Each worked until they were exhausted. It was strangely quiet when they were done.
Then, curious to see what Mootisse had been doing, Picasso sprinted around to the other side.
At the same time, Mootisse galloped over to Picasso's side. The silence was broken as the two artists began laughing, and at their amazing work of art.
From that day on, Picasso and Mootisse became great friends. They happily took down the fence and shared their different views. A few months later, a big museum bought the fence. Picasso called his slide When Picasso Met Mootisse.
And Mootisse called his side When Mootisse Met Pigasso. The critics called it incredible. The end.
All right. There was a little page here that I want to show you that has a little story about them. And the one thing I wanted to share was they did become lifelong friends, even though they didn't always agree on art. And Mootisse once told Picasso, "We must talk to each other as much as we can. When one of us dies, there will be some things the other will never be able to talk of with anyone else." That is a wonderful friendship.